After raising my daughter alone for 35 years and building our family's dream beach house with my bare hands, my son-in-law told me I was too old to be in their family photos. So I decided to show them what this old lady could do by selling the $3 million beach house they'd been planning to inherit. What happened next changed our family forever. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The salty breeze carried the laughter of my grandchildren as they played on the private beach, the same stretch of sand where I'd spent countless summers teaching my daughter Emma to swim. At 68, I stood on the weathered deck of our family beach house, the one I'd built with my late husband's life insurance money after he died when Emma was just 3. "Mimi, watch this," called out 6-year-old Sophie, attempting another cartwheel on the sand. I waved, my heart full as I watched my grandchildren play. This house wasn't just wood and nails. It was 35 years of memories. Every loose floorboard told a story. Every scratch on the kitchen counter marked a family celebration. After raising Emma alone, working 2 jobs as a bookkeeper and evening tutor, I'd finally saved enough to build this place when she was 13. We'd spent every summer here since. The sliding door opened behind me, and my son-in-law Blake stepped out, designer sunglasses perched on his head. He'd married Emma 5 years ago, and while he came from money, his family owned several tech companies, I'd tried to welcome him warmly into our modest but loving family. "Jody," he said, not bothering with Mom like I'd asked him to call. "Me, the photographer will be here in an hour for the family photos." "Wonderful. I'll go change into that blue dress Emma likes." He cleared his throat. "Actually, about that. Emma and I were talking, and we think it might be better if you supervise the kids during the shoot." "Supervise? But this is our family photo. We take one every summer." Blake shifted uncomfortably, glancing around at the beach house with what I'd come to recognize as barely concealed disdain. He often made comments about the dated kitchen or the rustic furniture, not understanding that each piece had been chosen with love and saved for with sacrifice. "It's just that these photos are for our holiday cards and—" He paused, choosing his words carefully. "We want a certain aesthetic. You understand?" "I'm afraid I don't." He sighed, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair. "Look, Jody, I don't want to be harsh, but these photos are going to our friends and business associates. We're trying to present a certain image, and frankly..." "Frankly what?" "You're too old to fit the image we're trying to project. We need to think about our brand." The words hit me like a physical blow. I gripped the railing of the deck I'd sanded, myself looking out at the ocean that had been my solace through every hardship. "My brand?" I asked quietly. "Our family brand. Emma's career is taking off. I'm being considered for partner at the firm. And these photos, they matter. We need to look young, successful, vibrant. Having you in them would age the whole image." I stood there, stunned into silence. This was the same man who'd stood in this very spot 2 years ago, telling Emma and me how much he loved this house, how he couldn't wait to bring his own children here someday. The same man who'd smiled when I'd told him that someday. All of this would be theirs. "Where's Emma?" I finally asked. "Getting her hair done in town. She agrees with me on this, Jody. She just didn't want to be the one to tell you." That hurt even more than his words. Emma, my daughter, who I'd raised alone, after her father died. Emma, who'd cried on my shoulder when she got her first heartbreak at 16. Emma, who'd stood beside me as we spread her father's ashes in the waves just beyond our beach. "I see," I said quietly. "Well, thank you for being so direct." Blake seemed relieved, mistaking my calm for acceptance. "I knew you'd understand. It's nothing personal. Just business." "Just business," I repeated. He went back inside, probably to call the photographer and confirm the plans. I stayed on the deck, watching my grandchildren play, thinking about all the summers we'd shared here. All the photographs on the walls inside. Emma as a baby taking her first steps on this beach, her high school graduation party, her college friends who became like family, her wedding reception we'd held right here because she'd said nowhere else felt like home. I walked inside and looked at those photos now. 35 years of memories, and apparently I was too old to make new ones. At least ones worth putting on a holiday card. That evening, after the photographer had come and gone, and I'd dutifully watched the children while trying not to notice how carefully they posed Emma to hide any hint of her own age, I sat alone in my bedroom. The same bedroom where I'd cried myself to sleep after my husband died, where I'd written college essays with Emma, where I'd sewn her prom dress because we couldn't afford the one she wanted. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the name I was looking for: Arthur Fitzgerald. Arthur was an old friend who'd become the most successful real estate agent in the Hamptons. We'd grown up together, and though our lives had taken different paths, his to Manhattan penthouses and mine to this weathered beach house, we'd stayed in touch. "Jody!" His warm voice came through the phone. "Don't tell me you're finally ready to let me list that gold mine of yours." "How did you know?" I asked. "I've been trying to get you to sell that place for years. It's worth at least $3 million now, probably more with the private beach access. What changed your mind?" I looked out my window at the moon reflecting off the ocean. "Let's just say I've realized it's time for some changes." "Well, it's about time. When can I come take photos? How about tomorrow? That soon? You sure about this, Jody? I know how much that place means to you." "I'm sure," I said firmly. "And Arthur? I want this kept quiet until we have a buyer. I don't want my family to know yet." "Whatever you say. But Jody, is everything all right?" I thought about Blake's words, about Emma's silence, about being too old for family photos in the house I'd built with my own hands. "Everything's going to be just fine," I said. "See you tomorrow." After I hung up, I walked back downstairs. Blake and Emma were on the deck, sharing a bottle of wine I'd bought for special occasions. Their voices carried through the open window. "I think it went well," Blake was saying. "The photos will be perfect for the Harringtons' party." "I still feel bad about Mom," Emma replied, but her voice lacked conviction. She was fine with it. "Your mother's a practical woman. She knows how these things work." I stood in the kitchen I'd designed myself, in the house I'd built from grief and love, and felt something shift inside me. They thought I was too old for photographs? Well, I'd show them that this old woman still had a few surprises left. Tomorrow, Arthur would come with his camera. But his photos wouldn't be for holiday cards or social media posts. They'd be for sale listings and buyer presentations. And when the right offer came through, and with this market, it would come quickly, my daughter and her husband would learn that sometimes, when you push the older generation out of the picture, you lose more than just a photo opportunity. I poured myself a glass of wine, the good stuff I'd been saving, and raised it in a quiet toast to new beginnings. They wanted to preserve their brand? Well, I was about to rebrand myself too. Starting with turning this $3 million asset into my own future, not theirs. As the waves crashed against the shore below, I smiled for the first time that day. This old woman wasn't just fading into the background. She was about to make the biggest move of her life. Arthur arrived at 9 a.m. sharp the next morning, his silver Mercedes looking oddly out of place next to my well-worn Honda in the driveway. Blake and Emma had taken the kids to the country club for breakfast, giving me the perfect window of opportunity. "Jody, you look wonderful." Arthur embraced me warmly. Despite his tailored suit and expensive watch, he was still the same boy who'd shared his lunch with me in 3rd grade. "Don't flatter an old woman," I said with a wry smile. "Old? Please. You're distinguished. Now let me see this treasure." He pulled out a professional camera and a tablet. "I've been dying to get my hands on this listing." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. As we walked through the house, Arthur's trained eye took in every detail. Original hardwood floors, hand-carved banisters, custom built-ins. Jody, this craftsmanship is incredible. They don't make houses like this anymore. My husband Douglas and I designed every inch. After he died, I finished it myself. Took me 3 years of working nights and weekends. And the location. He stepped onto the deck, inhaling deeply. Private beach access, unobstructed ocean views, walking distance to town, but perfectly secluded. This is going to cause a bidding war. How quickly can you sell it? He studied my face. With the right marketing? 2 weeks, maybe less. But Jody, are you absolutely sure? This isn't just a house. It's your legacy. I thought about Blake's words from yesterday. Apparently, my legacy doesn't fit the right aesthetic. Arthur raised an eyebrow but didn't press. Instead, he began taking photos, capturing the morning light streaming through the windows, the way the ocean sparkled beyond the deck, the cozy reading nook where I'd spent countless evenings with Emma. We were in the kitchen when I heard car doors slam. My heart jumped. They were back early. Mimi, Sophie and her younger brother Max burst through the door, Sandy and giggling. We saw dolphins. Blake and Emma followed, stopping short when they saw Arthur. Mom? Emma's voice was uncertain. What's going on? Oh, just catching up with an old friend, I said casually. Emma, you remember Arthur Fitzgerald? The real estate agent? Blake's voice sharpened. He looked at Arthur's camera, the measuring tape on the counter, the folder marked listing agreement. What's he doing here? Arthur, ever the professional, smiled smoothly. Just visiting Jody. Beautiful morning for photos. Of the house? Blake stepped forward. Our house? Actually, I said calmly, it's my house. The silence that followed was deafening. Emma's face had gone pale. Blake's jaw worked as he processed what was happening. Kids? Emma said quickly. Why don't you go play in your room? Once they were gone, Blake turned to me, his face flushed. You're selling the beach house? Without discussing it with us? Why would I need to discuss it with you? Because we're family. This house is supposed to stay in the family. You've always said Emma would inherit it. Plans change, I said evenly. Arthur, shall we continue the tour? Mom, wait. Emma finally found her voice. What's going on? Why are you doing this? I looked at my daughter, searching her face for the little girl I'd raised. Why don't you tell me, Emma? Since you and Blake discuss everything about me behind my back anyway. Her cheeks reddened. What are you talking about? The family photos? The ones I'm too old to be in? Understanding dawned on her face. Mom, that wasn't... Blake just thought... That I would embarrass you? That I don't fit your brand? Blake had the audacity to look annoyed. Jody, you're overreacting. It was just one photo shoot. No, Blake, it was the final straw. I turned to Arthur. How soon can you have the paperwork ready? I can have everything prepared by this afternoon. Mom, please. Emma grabbed my arm. Let's talk about this. You can't just sell our family. Home? Can't I? It seems I don't fit in this family anymore anyway. Blake's businessman persona kicked in. Look, Jody, if this is about money, we can work something out. Maybe we could buy it from you? Arthur couldn't suppress a snort. At market value, we're talking at least $3 million, possibly $3.5 million with multiple offers. Blake's face went slack. $3 million? Did you think it was worthless? I asked. Just like you think I am? Nobody said you were worthless, Emma protested weakly. No, just too old to be seen with. Too embarrassing to include in your perfect family portraits. Arthur cleared his throat diplomatically. Perhaps I should come back later. No, I said. firmly. Please continue. I want this listed by end of day. As Arthur resumed photographing, Blake pulled Emma aside, whispering furiously. I caught fragments. Convince her. Our future. Kids' inheritance. Emma approached me again, tears in her eyes. Mom, please. This house means everything to me. Does it? Because yesterday, I meant everything to you too. Yet you let your husband... Tell me I wasn't good enough for a simple photograph. That's not... It wasn't like that. Then what was it like, Emma? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you chose his opinion over 35 years of my love and sacrifice. Blake, apparently deciding on a new strategy, stepped forward with forced charm. Jody, we got off on the wrong foot here. Why don't we all sit down, have some coffee, talk this through like adults? Like adults? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You mean like how you talked to me yesterday? When you explained that I'm too old to be seen with? Arthur finished his photos and approached carefully. Jody, I have what I need. Should I proceed with the listing? Yes, I said without hesitation. Mom, you're being ridiculous. Emma's voice rose. You're going to sell our family home over a photo? No, Emma. I'm selling it because I finally see clearly. This isn't about a photo. It's about respect. It's about the fact that you stood by while your husband insulted the woman who raised you alone, who worked herself to the bone to give you everything. Blake's mask finally slipped. This is exactly the kind of dramatic behavior we were trying to avoid. Do you see now, Emma? This is why we can't have her in professional photos. She turns everything into a soap opera. The words hung in the air like poison. Even Arthur looked shocked. Emma opened her mouth, then closed it again, saying, Nothing. And that silence said everything. Arthur, I said quietly, I'd like to add a stipulation to the sale. The new owners must take possession within 30 days. Mom! Emma gasped. That's plenty of time for you to plan your next family photo shoot. Elsewhere, I said. Somewhere more fitting for your brand? Arthur nodded, making a note. I'll have my office draft the papers immediately. Jody, I'll call you this afternoon with marketing strategy. As he left, the silence in the house was suffocating. Blake stormed out to the deck, phone already at his ear, probably calling his lawyer. Emma stood in the middle of the kitchen, tears streaming down her face. How could you do this to us? She whispered. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw not my daughter, but a stranger. The question, Emma, is how could you do this to me? I walked to my bedroom and closed the door, leaving her standing there. Through the window, I could see Blake pacing on the deck, gesticulating wildly as he talked on his phone. On my nightstand was a photo from Emma's wedding, all of us laughing on this very beach, Blake's arm around my shoulders, Emma radiant. In her dress. I picked up the frame and turned it face down. That family was gone. But maybe, just maybe, I could build something new from the ashes. And this time, I'd make sure I was in the picture, front and center, exactly where I belonged. That evening, after Blake and Emma had retreated to their room for what sounded like an intense strategy session, I sat in my favorite armchair by the window, watching the sunset paint the ocean in shades of gold and crimson. The photo albums I'd pulled from the closet lay scattered across my lap, each page a chapter in the story of how we'd gotten here. The first album held pictures from before Emma was born, Douglas and me on our wedding day, both of us barely 22, and full of dreams. He'd been a carpenter with calloused hands and gentle eyes, and I'd been a bookkeeper who loved numbers almost as much as I loved him. We'd met at a community dance, and he'd stepped on my feet 3 times before finally asking if I'd like to get some air. I'm better with wood than with dancing, he'd admitted, and I'd laughed, charmed by his honesty. 2 years later, Emma arrived, and our tiny apartment became a universe of baby bottles and lullabies. Douglas worked construction during the day and took furniture repair jobs at night. I did the books for local businesses, often with Emma sleeping in a bassinet beside my desk. The accident happened on a rainy Tuesday. A scaffolding collapse at a high-rise construction site. The foreman had called me himself, his voice shaking. "There's been an incident, Mrs. Hartwell." I turned the page quickly, past the funeral photos, past the images of me in black holding 3-year-old Emma's hand. The life insurance had been modest, just enough to keep us afloat while I figured out how to be a single mother. The next section showed our early years in the tiny rental cottage near the beach. I'd taken a job as a bookkeeper for Seaside Realty, where Arthur's father was the owner. That's how I'd learned about the plot of land, a scrubby lot with ocean access that nobody wanted because it was too small for the McMansions that were becoming popular. "It's been on the market for 2 years," Arthur's father had told me. "The owner's desperate to sell. I'd bought it with the last of Douglas's life insurance money. Everyone thought I was crazy." "What's a single mother going to do with an empty lot?" they'd whispered. But I had a vision. Douglas had left behind detailed sketches of his dream house, a craftsman cottage with wide porches and built-in bookcases designed for a family that would never be. I'd spent 3 years saving every penny, learning construction basics from library books and helpful contractors who'd known Douglas. The photos showed the progression: me in overalls, hammer in hand, Emma playing in the sand nearby. Local contractors who'd worked with Douglas volunteered their weekends, framing, roofing, teaching me how to lay tile. The house rose slowly, lovingly, each board a testament to determination. "Mommy, why are you building our house yourself?" 8-year-old Emma had asked. "Because when you build something with your own hands, it becomes part of you," I'd answered. "And because your daddy designed it for us." A soft knock interrupted my memories. I quickly wiped my eyes as Sophie peeked around the door. "Mimi? Can I come in?" "Of course, sweetheart." She climbed into my lap, nestling against me. "Mommy and Daddy are fighting," she whispered. "Daddy says you're being selfish." My heart clenched. "Adults sometimes disagree, honey. It's not your worry." "Are you really selling our beach house?" I stroked her hair, the same wheat color Emma's had been at that age. "I'm thinking about it. But why? This is our special place." How could I explain to a 6-year-old that sometimes the people you love most can hurt you the deepest? That her father had decided I was an embarrassment? That her mother had chosen silence over loyalty? "Sometimes we have to make hard choices," I said finally. Sophie picked up a photo from the album, Emma's college graduation. "Mommy says you worked 3 jobs to pay for her school." I had. Bookkeeping during the day, tutoring math in the evenings, weekend shifts at the local library. Emma had gotten into Dartmouth, her dream school, and I'd been determined to make it happen without loans. "Education is important," I said simply. "Daddy went to Harvard," Sophie informed me. "He says that's why he's successful." I bit back my response. Blake's Harvard education had been paid for by his grandfather's trust fund. He'd never worked a day in his life until joining his family's investment firm after graduation. When he'd started dating Emma, I'd worried about the difference in their backgrounds, but Emma had been dazzled by his sophistication, his connections, his easy confidence. The wedding had been here, on our beach. Blake's family had offered to pay for a grand affair at their country club, but Emma had insisted. "This is my home," she'd said then. "This is where I want to start my marriage." How things had changed. Another knock. This time it was Emma, her eyes red-rimmed. "Mom? Can we talk?" Sophie slipped off my lap and scampered away. Emma took her place in the opposite chair, looking younger than her 35 years. "I've been thinking about what you said earlier," she began hesitantly. "About me not defending you." I waited. "You don't understand the pressure we're under. Blake's up for partner. My design business is finally taking off. Image matters in our world. Your world? I corrected gently. When did it stop being our world? She flinched. That's not fair. You've never understood what it's like, trying to fit in with Blake's circle. They all went to prep schools and Ivy Leagues. Their families have vacation homes in the Hamptons. Not houses they built themselves. Are you ashamed of where you come from? No, I want Sophie and Max to have opportunities I didn't have. To belong in that world from the start, not always feel like they're catching up. I studied my daughter's face, seeing the conflict there. Emma, do you remember what you wrote in your college essay? The one that got you into Dartmouth? She looked down at her hands. You wrote about watching me build this house, about learning that real wealth isn't what you inherit, but what you create. The admissions officer later told me it was the most moving essay she'd read that year. Things were different then. Were they? Or have you just forgotten who you are? Emma's phone buzzed. Blake's name flashed on the screen. She glanced at it, then back at me. He wants to know if you'll consider a compromise. Maybe we could buy, out your share over time? I almost laughed. With what? His trust fund payments? The money his family gives you for Christmas? That's unfair. Is it? Tell me, Emma. When was the last time Blake appreciated anything he didn't pay for? When was the last time he built something with his own hands? She stood abruptly. You don't know him like I do. He's a good father, a good husband. But not a good son-in-law? She paused at the door. Mom, please reconsider. This house, it's our history. Yes, I agreed. It is. And yesterday, your husband decided that history was too old to be seen in public. After she left, I returned to the photo albums. The last picture was from last summer. All of us on the deck, Blake looking at his phone while Emma posed the children. I was slightly apart from the group, already being edged out of frame. My phone rang. Arthur. Jody, you're not going to believe this. I've already had 3 inquiries. Word travels fast in this market. One buyer is prepared to offer cash above asking if we move quickly. I looked around the room I'd built with my own hands, at the AT, photos chronicling a life of love and sacrifice, and felt a strange sense of peace. Set up the viewings, Arthur. The sooner the better. Are you sure about this? I thought about Blake's words, Emma's silence, and 35 years of memories, both beautiful and painful. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. The next morning, I woke to find Blake's parents' Mercedes in the driveway. Through my bedroom window, I watched as Patricia and Harrison Blake III stepped out, both dressed as if attending a board meeting rather than visiting a beach house. Patricia's designer heels sank into the sandy path, and she grimaced with each step. The cavalry has arrived, I muttered, pulling on my robe. I'd met Blake's parents exactly 5 times in 5 years. Each encounter had been at formal events where Patricia had looked through me rather than at me, and Harrison had gruffly acknowledged my existence before turning to more important conversations. Emma had always made excuses for their coldness, but I knew the truth. I was the wrong kind of mother-in-law. By the time I reached the kitchen, battle lines were being drawn. Blake and his parents sat on one side of my dining table while Emma nervously made coffee. Her hands shook as she set down cups. Jody, Patricia said without preamble, not bothering with a greeting. This nonsense needs to stop. You're upsetting the entire family with this rash decision. I poured myself coffee and sat down. Good morning to you too, Patricia. Harrison cleared his throat, a sound that probably intimidated boardrooms, but merely reminded me of my late husband's father, who'd had the same habit. We understand you're upset about some miscommunication regarding photographs, but selling a valuable family asset out of spite is hardly mature behavior. Asset? I sipped my coffee. Yesterday it was my home. Today it's an asset? You know what he means, Mom, Blake interjected. This property is worth millions. It should stay in the family. Your family or Emma's? I asked pointedly. Patricia's perfectly penciled eyebrows rose. They're the same thing now. After all, we've welcomed Emma into our family despite the differences in background. How generous of you, I said dryly. Emma flinched at my tone. Mom, please, they're trying to help. Are they? It seems to me they're trying to protect their future inheritance. Harrison's face reddened. Now, see here. No, you see here. I cut him off, surprised by my own firmness. This house was built with my husband's death benefit and 20 years of my labor. Every penny that went into it came from my work as a bookkeeper and tutor. Not one dime came from the Blake family coffers. But you always said Emma would inherit it, Blake protested. That was before you decided I was too old and embarrassing to be in your family photos. Before you made it clear that I don't fit your aesthetic, Patricia sniffed. Blake told us about that unfortunate conversation. Perhaps he could have been more tactful, but surely you understand the importance of image in our social circles. Your social circles, I corrected. In my circles, we value respect for our elders. My phone buzzed. Arthur's name appeared on the screen. Excuse me, I said, standing. I need to take this. It's my realtor. I stepped onto the deck, leaving them to discuss my irrational behavior amongst themselves. Arthur? Jody, you're not going to believe this. Remember that cash buyer I mentioned? They want to see the property today. They're flying in from Manhattan this afternoon. That's fast. They're motivated. Apparently they've been looking for exactly this kind of property. Authentic craftsmanship, private beach, family history. The wife is an architectural preservationist. She's very excited about the original details. Through the glass doors, I could see Blake gesturing angrily while his parents nodded in agreement. Emma sat with her head in her hands. What time? 3:00 if that works. Perfect. The Sharks will have circled enough by then. Sharks? My son-in-law's parents have arrived to talk sense into the crazy old lady. Arthur chuckled. Want me to bring my shark repellent? Just bring your contracts. I'll handle the sharks. I ended the call and went back inside. The conversation stopped abruptly. Good news, I announced cheerfully. I have buyers coming to view the house this afternoon. So if you'll excuse me, I need to tidy up. Mother, stop this, Emma pleaded. Can't we talk about this reasonably? I thought I was being quite reasonable. I'm selling my property, as is my right. Harrison stood, using his full height to try to intimidate me. Mrs. Hartwell, perhaps you don't understand the situation. This house represents a significant portion of our grandchildren's future inheritance. Really? I feigned innocence. I thought your family's wealth would be more than sufficient for them. After all, Blake never lets us forget about the family trust funds. Blake's face darkened. That's not the point. This house has sentimental value. Oh, now it has sentimental value? Yesterday it was just an embarrassment, wasn't it? Too rustic for your tastes? Patricia intervened with forced sweetness. Jody, dear, we all say things we don't mean sometimes. Blake made a mistake. But surely you won't punish your grandchildren for their father's poor choice of words. I looked at her designer outfit, her perfect manicure, her practiced smile, and felt years of suppressed frustration bubble up. Punish them? I'm setting them free. Free from the burden of inheriting something that embarrasses their parents. Free from having to maintain a house that's too weathered and dated for their social circle. Mom, Emma stood suddenly. Stop. Just stop. I know you're hurt, but you're being cruel now. Cruel. I turned to my daughter. Was I cruel when I worked 3 jobs to put you through Dartmouth? Was I cruel when I spent my weekends teaching you to swim, to read, to believe in yourself? Was I cruel when I welcomed Blake into our family without questioning his character because you loved him? Silence fell over the room. You're right about one thing, Emma. I am hurt. Not because of a photograph, but because my own daughter stood silent while her husband told me I wasn't good enough for your new life. Harrison cleared his throat again. Perhaps we should discuss actual figures. What are you hoping to get for the property? The asking price is $3.2 million, Patricia gasped. That's ridiculous. Actually, Blake said quickly, his business instincts kicking in, that's below market for this area. Waterfront properties in the Hamptons are going for much more. Exactly. I smiled. I'm practically giving it away. The buyers will be thrilled. We'll match any offer, Harrison declared. Will you? Cash? No contingencies? 30-day closing? He hesitated. We'd need to liquidate some investments. How fortunate that my buyers are prepared to move immediately. Blake ran his hand through his hair. Jody, please, be reasonable. This is our children's legacy. No, Blake, this is my legacy. I built it with my own hands, my own sweat, my own tears, and I'll decide what happens to it. Just then, Sophie and Max ran in from the beach, trailing sand. Mimi! Sophie ran to hug me. We found the biggest shell ever. Max held up their treasure. Can we add it to the collection? I knelt down to admire their find. Of course. You know where the shell jar is. As they scampered off to the kitchen, I stood and faced the adults. Those children will have everything they need. Parents who love them, education, opportunities. What they won't have is a grandmother who's hidden away because she doesn't fit the right image. That's not fair, Emma protested. No, I agreed. It's not, but neither was yesterday. My phone rang again. This time it was my banker, confirming that he could meet with me tomorrow to discuss investment options for the house proceeds. When I hung up, Harrison made one more attempt. Jody, let's not be hasty. We're family. Surely we can work this out. Family? I looked at each of them. Family doesn't exclude family from photographs. Family doesn't whisper about keeping up appearances. Family loves unconditionally, wrinkles, rough hands, and all. I walked to the door and opened it. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a house to prepare for showing. You're welcome to stay and help clean, or you can leave. Your choice, Patricia. Stood first, gathering her designer purse. Harrison, we're wasting our time here. She's clearly having some sort of senior moment. A moment of clarity, actually, I corrected. Blake stood as well, his frustration evident. This isn't over. Oh, but it is, I said firmly. The only question is whether you'll be part of my future or just a cautionary tale I tell at the senior center. As they filed out, Emma lingered. Mom, please, think about what you're doing. I have thought about it, Emma. For the first time in years, I'm thinking very clearly. After they left, I stood in my kitchen, looking at the shells the children had collected over the years, displayed in jars on the windowsill. Each one a memory, each one precious. I picked up my phone and texted Arthur. They're bringing out the big guns. Be prepared for interference this afternoon. His reply came quickly. Let them try. I've got 3 backup buyers waiting. Sometimes the best revenge is success. I smiled, set down my phone, and began preparing my house for its next chapter. Whatever happened this afternoon, one thing was certain. This old woman wasn't backing down. 2 hours before the showing, I was arranging fresh flowers when I heard Emma's car in the driveway. Through the window, I saw her helping the children out, but Blake was notably absent. She carried a covered plate, and for a moment, my heart softened. It looked like the banana bread she used to make with me every Sunday. Mom? She called, entering through the kitchen door. I brought your favorite. She set the plate down, and indeed, the familiar scent of banana bread filled the room. The same recipe I'd taught her when she was 10, when we couldn't afford bakery treats. Where's Blake? I asked cautiously. He and his parents went golfing. To strategize, she made air quotes, rolling her eyes slightly. I told them I needed to talk to you alone. It was the first crack I'd seen in their united front. Sophie and Max ran to the playroom, leaving us in the kitchen where we'd shared countless conversations over the years. I've been thinking all morning, Emma began, slicing the bread. About what you said, about Dartmouth, about the essay, about everything. I remained quiet, letting her speak. Do you remember my first week at college? I called you crying because everyone else had designer clothes and spring break plans to Europe, and I had your handmade quilts and a summer job lined up. You wanted to come home, I recalled. And you told me that my roots were my strength, not my weakness. That knowing how to work hard was worth more than any trust fund. She handed me a slice of bread, and I bit into it, tasting memory and love in every bite. I think I lost sight of that, she continued softly. When I met Blake, his world seemed so effortless. No worries about bills, no summer jobs, no sacrifices. I thought if I could give that to my children, I'd be a better mother than me, I finished. No, a better provider. You are an amazing mother. I just wanted my kids to have it easier. She sat down across from me, looking more like the earnest young girl I'd raised than the polished woman she'd become. Yesterday, when Blake said those things about the photos, I should have spoken up. I was shocked, but I was also embarrassed. Not of you, but of his behavior. And then I was too cowardly to confront him. And now? I asked carefully. Now I realize I've been letting him reshape our family into something I don't recognize. Mom, I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose this house. I don't want to lose us. My resolve wavered. This was my daughter, my Emma, finally seeing. Clearly, I told Blake he needs to apologize, she continued. Really apologize, not just to smooth things over. And I made it clear that from now on, you're in every family photo, front and center. What did he say? She smiled wryly. He's not happy. But I reminded him that without you, we wouldn't even have this house to fight over. That shut him up. I felt tears prickling my eyes. Emma, I want to believe this changes things. It does. Look, I even brought these. She pulled out her phone, showing me professionally taken family photos from previous years, all featuring me prominently. I'm having them printed and framed. They're going in our living room where everyone can see them. That's lovely, dear, but... And I called the photographer from yesterday. Told him we need to reschedule with the whole family, the real family. My phone buzzed with a text from Arthur. On my way with the buyers. See you at 3. Emma noticed my glance. Mom, please cancel the showing. Give us another chance. I promise things will be different. I looked at my daughter's pleading eyes, then at the banana bread, still warm, made with hands that I had taught to measure and mix. The weight of 35 years of love pressed against my chest. I need some air, I said, standing. Just give me a minute. On the deck, I breathed in the salt air and watched the waves. Could I trust this change of heart? Was Emma's awakening genuine, or just panic at losing her inheritance? My phone rang. It was Kendall, my best friend since high school. Jody, I heard through the grapevine that you're selling the beach house. Please tell me it's not true. It's true, I sighed. Or it was. Now I'm not sure. What happened? I gave her the abbreviated version. Kendall listened, then said, Remember when we were young mothers together? You always said Emma was your mirror. She'd reflect whatever energy you gave her. What's your point? Maybe she's finally reflecting your strength instead of Blake's shallowness. People can grow, Jody, even adult children. After we hung up, I stood watching the ocean for a long time. Maybe Emma was sincere. Maybe Blake would change. Maybe we could rebuild. I walked back inside to find Emma cleaning the kitchen, something she hadn't done without being asked since she was a teenager. I've been thinking, she said without turning around. Maybe we could set up a trust for the house. Keep it in the family but protect your interests. Blake's parents have lawyers who could... And there it was, Blake's parents, Blake's lawyers. Even in her apology, Emma was deferring to the Blakes. Emma, I interrupted gently. I appreciate everything you've said. I really do. And I want to believe things can change. They will change, Mom. I promise. But I've already made commitments. Buyers are coming in an hour. So tell them you've changed your mind. It's your house. Yes, I agreed. It is my house, and that's exactly why. I need to do this. Mom, please. Listen to me, Emma. Really listen. This isn't just about a photo or an insult. It's about patterns. It's about the fact that even now your solution involves Blake's family lawyers. It's about 5 years of watching you slowly erase our history to fit into their world. She turned to face me, tears streaming. I'm trying to fix this. I know you are. And maybe someday we can build something new. But right now, I need to choose myself. For once in my life, I need to put my own needs first. By selling our home? By setting myself free, I corrected. And maybe setting you free too. Free to figure out who you are without this house as a safety net. Free to stand up to Blake, without me as a buffer. The doorbell rang. Through the glass, I could see Arthur with a well-dressed couple. That's them, I said quietly. Emma grabbed my hands. Mom, I'm begging you. Don't do this. We can work it out. Blake will come around. I know he will. I squeezed her hands, then gently pulled away. That's just it, sweetheart. I don't want to wait for Blake to come around. I don't want to hope he'll treat me with respect. I deserve better than that. And deep down, so do you. I walked to the door, pausing with my hand on the knob. You're welcome to stay for the showing if you'd like, or you can go. But either way, this is happening. Emma stood frozen in the kitchen, the banana bread cooling on the counter between us, a sweet gesture that couldn't mask the bitter reality of our situation. I opened the door to greet Arthur and the buyers, my heart heavy but my resolve firm. Sometimes false hope is crueler than harsh truth. And sometimes the hardest thing to do is to stop hoping for change and create it yourself. Welcome, I said to the couple, my voice steady. Please, come in. Let me show you around my home. Behind me, I heard Emma gathering her things, calling the children. The sound of their departure echoed through the house, a house that had heard so many goodbyes, but none quite like this. As I led the buyers through the front room, pointing out the original hardwood floors that Douglas and I had installed together, I caught Emma's eye through the window. She stood by her car, children in tow, looking lost. I gave her a small nod. Not goodbye exactly, but an acknowledgement. An ending, and perhaps, someday, a new beginning. But first, I had a house to sell and a life to reclaim. The banana bread could wait. My future could not. The buyers, Douglas and Avery Chen, were nothing like I expected. Avery ran her fingers along the hand-carved banister with genuine appreciation, while Douglas examined the exposed beams with an architect's eye. These joints, Douglas murmured, they're hand-cut. You don't see craftsmanship like this anymore. My late husband was a carpenter, I explained. He designed everything, and I finished it after he passed. Avery's eyes widened. You built this? Yourself? With help from friends, yes, it took 3 years. Arthur shot me a knowing look as the Chens exchanged glances. We'd barely reached the kitchen when the front door burst open. Blake stormed in, still in his golf attire, face flushed with anger. His parents followed, equally agitated. Stop this showing immediately, Blake demanded. This is a family matter. Arthur stepped forward professionally. Mr. Blake, we're in the middle of a scheduled viewing. If you'd like to wait outside, I'm not going anywhere. This is my children's inheritance you're trying to steal. Douglas Chen cleared his throat. Perhaps we should come back another time. No, I said firmly. Mr. and Mrs. Chen, I apologize for this interruption. Blake, you need to leave. Now. Or what? Blake sneered. You'll call the police on your own family? This isn't your property, Arthur reminded him. Patricia clutched her pearls. This is outrageous. We're prepared to match any offer these people make. Are you? I asked calmly. Because Mr. Chen just mentioned they're prepared to offer $3.5 million cash, no contingencies. Blake's confident facade cracked. 3.5 with a 10-day closing, Arthur added. Harrison Blake finally spoke. That's impossible. We'd need at least 60 days to liquidate. Then I guess you're not matching the offer, I said. Avery Chen, who'd been watching this drama unfold, spoke up. Mrs. Hartwell, we absolutely love your home. The craftsmanship, the history. It's exactly what we've been searching for. We lost our family home in a fire last year, and we've been looking for a place with soul. This house, it speaks to us. You have no right to be here, Blake exploded. This is theft. Blake. I raised my voice, something I rarely did. This is my house. Mine. Not yours, not Emma's, not your parents'. I built it, I paid for it, and I'll sell it to whomever I choose. You bitter old woman, Patricia hissed. You're destroying this family out of spite. That was it. The final straw. No, Patricia. Your son destroyed this family when he decided I wasn't good enough to be seen with. When he convinced my daughter that appearances matter more than love. When he made me feel worthless in the home I built with my own hands, I turned to the Chens. I accept your offer. Arthur, draw up the papers. You can't do this. Blake lunged forward, but Douglas Chen stepped between us. Sir, I think you should leave before this escalates further. Who the hell are you to tell me? I'm your mother-in-law's buyer, Douglas said calmly. And if you don't leave peacefully, I'll be happy to help Arthur call the authorities. Blake looked around wildly, realizing he was outnumbered. His parents were already backing toward the door, apparently deciding their reputation couldn't withstand a police incident. This isn't over, Blake spat as he retreated. I'll contest this sale. I'll sue. You'll do nothing, I said quietly. Because you have no grounds, no claim, no right. This is my house, my choice, my life. As the door slammed behind them, I turned to the Chens, who looked shell-shocked. I am so sorry for that display, I began. But Avery Chen stepped forward and surprised me with a gentle hug. Don't apologize. We understand family drama, and we still want the house. More than ever, actually. Really? Really? A home that inspires such passion? That's a home worth having. The next week moved at lightning speed. True to their word, the Chens submitted their offer within hours, and I accepted it immediately. Arthur handled everything with remarkable efficiency, while I began the bittersweet process of deciding what to keep and what to leave behind. I rented a small but charming cottage in town, close enough to maintain relationships with Sophie and Max if Emma allowed it, but far enough to establish my independence. As I packed, each item told a story. The quilt I'd made from Emma's baby clothes, Douglas's tools still hanging in the garage, shells collected over decades of beach walks. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from Blake and his lawyers, threatening legal action. Emma's texts were more conflicted, alternating between anger and pleading. I responded only to arrange times when she could collect items that belonged to her and the children. 3 days before closing, I received an unexpected visitor. Kendall arrived with coffee and pastries, finding me surrounded by boxes. I brought reinforcements, she said, then studied my face. How are you holding up? Better than expected. It's strange. I thought I'd be devastated, but I feel lighter. That's called freedom, honey. We sat on the deck, watching the morning sun paint the water gold. Blake's been calling everyone we know, Kendall reported, trying to drum up support, painting you as senile. Let him. Anyone who knows me knows better. He's also planning something for the closing day. Overheard him at the country club talking about an intervention. I sipped my coffee thoughtfully. Let him plan. I have a few surprises of my own. That afternoon, I made 3 important phone calls. First to my lawyer, confirming everything was ironclad. Second to the local newspaper. They'd been wanting to do a feature on the house's history for years. Third to Clyde Morrison, the contractor who'd helped me finish the house after Douglas died. Jody? Clyde's gravelly voice was warm with surprise. Been too long. How's that house holding up? Perfectly. Actually, that's why I'm calling. By evening, I had my plan in place. If Blake wanted a public confrontation, I'd give him one, but on my terms. The next morning, I found Emma sitting on my front steps, alone. The kids are in school, she explained unnecessarily. Can we talk? I sat beside her, remembering all. The times we'd sat here watching storms roll in. I've left him, she said quietly. I stayed silent, knowing there was more. Not permanently. Not yet. But I needed space to think. I'm staying at the Seaside Inn. What made you decide? After the scene with the buyers, Blake said something. He said you were lucky he even allowed me to waste my Yale education raising children, that he could have married anyone, but chose me despite my background. I winced. Oh, Emma. The thing is, I never went to Yale. I went to Dartmouth. He doesn't even remember where I went to school, and you didn't waste money on my education. You invested in my dreams. She turned to me, eyes red. How did I let it get this far? How did I become someone who'd let their husband disrespect the person who gave everything for me? People change gradually, I said gently. Like beach glass, worn smooth so slowly you don't notice the transformation. I want to be your daughter, again, not the Blake family's trophy wife. You never stopped being my daughter. But Emma, you need to want this for yourself, not to inherit a beach house. She nodded, wiping her eyes. I know. That's why I'm going to therapy. Individual, not couples. I need to find myself again. We sat in silence for a while. Then she asked, Is there really no way to stop the sale? No. And I don't want to. This is my choice, Emma. My fresh start. Will you ever forgive me? I took her hand. I already have. But forgiveness doesn't mean going backward. It means moving forward with wisdom. She left as the Chen's contractor arrived for the pre-closing inspection. As I walked him through the house, pointing out its quirks and charms, I felt ready for whatever Blake had planned for tomorrow. He could bring lawyers, family, even news crews. I had truth, determination, and 35 years of hard-earned wisdom on my side. Tomorrow, one chapter would end, but a better one would begin. The closing was scheduled for 10 a.m. at Arthur's office downtown. I arrived early, wearing my best navy suit, the one I'd bought for Emma's college graduation. Arthur greeted me with coffee and a reassuring smile. Ready for this? He asked. More than ready. The Chens arrived next, both looking excited but slightly nervous. Then my lawyer, Margaret Simmons, a sharp-eyed woman who'd handled my affairs since Douglas's death. At 9:55, the circus began. Blake burst through the door with his parents, 2 lawyers, and, to my surprise, a local news crew. This is an outrage, he announced loudly, clearly playing to the cameras. An elderly woman being manipulated into selling her family's legacy. Arthur stood. This is a private legal proceeding. The press needs to leave. The public deserves to know how senior citizens are being exploited, Blake declared. Right on cue, Clyde Morrison entered with 3 other contractors who'd helped build the house. Behind them came the reporter from the Hamptons Herald I'd called. Actually, I said calmly, standing to face the cameras, I'd like to make a statement. Blake's confident expression faltered. 35 years ago, I built this house with my own hands after my husband died, leaving me with a 3-year-old daughter. These men, I gestured to Clyde and the others, helped me. They can attest to my mental clarity then and now. The Herald reporter stepped forward. Mrs. Hartwell, we've been documenting your story for our upcoming feature on women. Builders of the Hamptons. Can you comment on the allegations that you're being manipulated? The only manipulation, I said clearly, is from family members who told me I was too old and embarrassing to appear in family photographs, who valued image over love, status over substance. Blake tried to interrupt, but I continued. I'm selling my house to a wonderful family who appreciates its history. The Chens lost their family home to fire. They understand that homes are built with love, not just money. She's not in her right mind, Patricia shrilled. Margaret, my lawyer, stood. I have Mrs. Hartwell's recent medical evaluation, conducted independently 3 days ago. She's in perfect mental health. She handed copies to Blake's lawyers. I also have documentation of multiple attempts by Blake Harrison to access Mrs. Hartwell's financial accounts without authorization. Blake's lawyers hurriedly whispered among themselves. Furthermore, Margaret continued, we have evidence of elder abuse, specifically emotional manipulation and attempted financial exploitation. The news cameras swung toward Blake, who was turning an alarming shade of red. This is ridiculous, he sputtered. Is it? I asked. Is it ridiculous that after raising my daughter alone, building this home with my savings, and welcoming you into our family, you decided I wasn't good enough to be seen with? That my appearance would damage your brand? The Chen's lawyer cleared his throat. Perhaps we could proceed with the closing? My clients have a certified check for the full amount. Blake made one last desperate attempt. We'll match their offer. Plus 10%. With what money? I asked. Your trust fund? The one that requires your parents' approval for large withdrawals? Harrison Blake shifted uncomfortably. Patricia studied her manicure. I thought so, I said. Arthur, let's proceed. What followed was anticlimactic. Papers were signed, checks exchanged, keys handed over. The news crew captured it all, including Blake's furious exit. As we finalized everything, Avery Chen took my hand. We'll take good care of your home, Jody. And you're welcome to visit any time. Thank you, but I think it's time for me to create new memories. Outside, Emma stood by her car. She'd witnessed the whole scene but hadn't participated. When our eyes met, she gave me a small, sad smile and a thumbs up. Perhaps there was hope for us yet. But first, I had a new life to begin. 3 days after the closing, as I was arranging flowers in my new cottage, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. It was Patricia Blake. We need to talk, she said, her usually imperious tone oddly subdued. Can you meet me at the Seahorse Cafe in an hour? Curiosity got the better of me. When I arrived, Patricia was already seated, looking decidedly less polished than usual. Her designer jacket was wrinkled, her perfect manicure chipped. Jody, she began without preamble. Harrison has cut Blake off. I stirred my coffee, waiting. After that spectacle at the closing, and the news coverage, Harrison was furious. He said Blake had embarrassed the family name. She laughed bitterly. Funny how that works, isn't it? Blake was so worried about his brand, and now he's damaged the family reputation beyond repair. Why are you telling me this? Patricia removed her sunglasses, revealing red-rimmed eyes. Because I owe you an apology, and because I need your help. This was unexpected. My help? Harrison is divorcing me. I blinked in surprise. He says I'm partially responsible for this mess, that I encouraged Blake's behavior, his snobbery. She dabbed at her eyes with a napkin. The prenup I signed 35 years ago. I'll get almost nothing, just like when you lost your husband. The parallel wasn't lost on me. But you know what's worse? Patricia continued. I found out yesterday that Blake has been having an affair. with his business partner's wife. For 2 years. Now that was a shock. Emma doesn't know yet. But when she finds out... Patricia shook her head. The partner is threatening to sue. It could destroy what's left of Blake's career. Again, why tell me this? Because Emma's going to need her mother. Her real mother, not me. Patricia's voice cracked. I've spent years looking down on you, Jody. Your job, your house, your simple life. But now I realize you built something real, something that lasted. While I built nothing but appearances, she reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. I found these while packing. Blake has been hiding them from Emma. Inside were cards and letters, birthday cards, Christmas cards, all addressed to Emma and the children in my handwriting, all unopened. He told Emma you never sent anything, Patricia said, that you'd become bitter and cut them off. He's been intercepting your mail for months. Rage and sorrow battled in my chest. Why would he do that? Control. It's always about control with Blake. Patricia sighed. Just like his father. I should have seen it sooner. My phone buzzed. Emma's name appeared. Mom, can you come over? I need you. Something's happened with Blake. Go to her, Patricia said, seeing my screen. She's at the Seaside Inn, room 212. And Jody, I truly am sorry. For everything. As I drove to Emma's hotel, my mind raced. Blake's cruelty ran deeper than I'd imagined. Those unopened cards represented every holiday, every birthday, where Emma might have thought I'd forgotten her children. Emma answered her door with swollen eyes and a crumpled letter in her hand. Mom, she sobbed, falling into my arms. His business partner's wife just sent me this. They've been having an affair. 2 years. The same amount of time he's been telling me we couldn't afford to help you with your medical bills. I held my daughter as she cried, just as I had when she was small. There's more, I said gently. Your mother-in-law just gave me these. I showed her the unopened cards. Emma's face went from shock to fury as she realized what Blake had done. He told me you wanted nothing to do with us after the family photo incident. That you'd written us off completely. She sank onto the bed. My God, what else has he lied about? The question is, I said, sitting beside her, what are you going to do now? Emma straightened her shoulders, the same gesture I'd seen countless times when she faced challenges as a child. First, I'm calling a divorce lawyer. Second, I'm bringing the kids to visit you this weekend. And third, she managed a watery smile. I'm asking if my old room in your new cottage might be available. The kids and I are going to need a place to stay. Always, I said, squeezing her hand. That's what family is for. Real family, she agreed. Not the kind that cares more about appearances than people. As we sat together, planning her next steps, I realized something. Selling the beach house hadn't just freed me from the past. It had exposed the truth about Blake, revealed Patricia's hidden humanity, and most importantly, brought my daughter back to me. Sometimes you have to tear down the old to build something new. And sometimes, the greatest plot twists aren't in stories. They're in real life, waiting for someone brave enough to turn the page. The divorce proceedings moved swiftly. Blake, faced with evidence of his affair and financial misconduct, agreed to a generous settlement to avoid a public trial. The scandal had already cost him his partnership prospects, and his family name was tarnished throughout the Hamptons social circuit. Emma and the children moved into my cottage the following month. It was smaller than what they were used to, but filled with warmth the Blake mansion had never possessed. Sophie and Max adapted quickly, delighting in the cozy reading nook I'd created and the small garden where we planted vegetables together. Mimi, this house feels like a hug, Sophie declared one morning, curled up with a book while Max built block towers at her feet. The comment made Emma cry. That's what I missed, she confessed later. That feeling of home. Blake's house was like a museum. Beautiful, but cold. Don't touch, don't mess up, don't live. 3 months after the closing, I received an invitation from the Chens. They were hosting an open house to celebrate the completion of their renovations and wanted me to see what they'd done with the space. I arrived to find they'd honored the house's history while adding their own touches. The kitchen had been updated, but retained its cozy charm. They'd kept Douglas's built-in bookcases and restored them to their original beauty. But the biggest surprise waited in the sunroom. "We found this in the attic," Avery Chen said, unveiling a framed photograph. It was the first picture Douglas and I had taken of the house, just the foundation and our dreams. Below it, they'd mounted a plaque, "Built with Love by Douglas and Jody Hartwell, 1990. A house becomes a home when filled with heart." "We hope you don't mind," Douglas Chen added. "We wanted to honor the history." I touched the frame, tears welling. "It's perfect." Meanwhile, Blake's world continued to crumble. The news had picked up the story of his affair, linking it to his attempt to shame me out of family photos. Several of his clients dropped him, citing values inconsistencies. Patricia, now living in a modest apartment and working as a receptionist, occasionally met me for coffee. She was discovering, at 65, who she was without the Blake name and money. "It's terrifying," she admitted one afternoon. But also liberating. I made my first real friend last week, someone who doesn't know about my former life. Arthur reported that my beach house sale had inspired 3 other older women to sell family properties they'd been pressured to keep. "You started something," he told me. "Women taking control of their assets, their futures." Emma flourished in her new life. She reopened her design business, this time focusing on affordable home transformations. "Making real homes for real people," she said. "Not showplaces, but spaces where families can live and love." One evening, as we sat on my cottage porch watching the children chase fireflies, Emma said, "I've been thinking about that family photo incident. In a way, I'm grateful it happened." "Really?" "If Blake hadn't shown his true colors so dramatically, I might have spent another decade living a lie. Sometimes the worst moments become our salvation." I squeezed her hand, watching my grandchildren laugh in the gathering dusk. The beach house was gone, but what I'd built in its place, this renewed relationship with my daughter, this honest life, was worth more than any property. "You know what?" I said. "We should take a new family photo, a real one." Emma grinned. "Front and center, Mom, right where you belong." 1 year after selling the beach house, I stood before a crowd at the Yaqui Hamptons Community Center, my hands steady on the podium. The Silver Strength initiative I'd founded was celebrating its first anniversary, and the room was filled with women over 60 who'd found new purpose through our programs. When someone tells you you're too old to matter, I addressed the crowd. "Remember that age isn't an expiration date, it's experience points. Each wrinkle is a story, each gray hair a lesson learned." The initiative had started small, just a support group for older women facing family pressures about inheritance and property. But it had grown into something more: financial literacy, workshops, legal advocacy, and even a mentorship program where we helped younger women avoid the traps we'd fallen into. Emma, who now served as our volunteer coordinator, caught my eye from the front row and smiled. Beside her sat Patricia Blake, who'd become one of our most dedicated volunteers, using her experience with high society manipulation to help other women recognize emotional abuse. 6 months ago, I couldn't balance my own checkbook, Patricia had confessed during one meeting. My husband controlled everything. Now I'm teaching other women how to read financial statements and spot red flags in prenups. The local newspaper had dubbed us the Grey Panthers of the Hamptons, a title we wore with pride. Even the Chens had gotten involved, hosting our monthly meetings at the beach house and establishing a scholarship fund for older women returning to school. After my speech, Avery Chen approached me. "Jody, we have a surprise for you." She led me to the garden, where a new bench had been installed facing the ocean. The plaque read, "In honor of Jody Hartwell, who taught us that starting over is just another word for courage." That evening, as our group celebrated at the cottage, my phone rang. It was an editor from a New York publishing house. "Mrs. Hartwell? I've been following your story in the Hamptons Herald. We'd like to discuss a book deal, a memoir about reinvention after 60. I looked around my small living room filled with women who'd become my new family. Emma was teaching Patricia how to use Instagram. Sophie was showing another woman's granddaughter how to make friendship bracelets. The cottage that had seemed so small compared to the beach house now felt expansive, with possibility. "You know what?" I told the editor. "I'd love to discuss it. But fair warning, this isn't just my story anymore. It's about all of us who discovered that life doesn't end when others decide we're too old. It begins when we decide we're enough." Later, as guests began leaving, Emma hugged me tight. "You know what the best part of all this is, Mom?" "What's that?" "You're not just in the picture now. You're painting a whole new one." Looking around at my new life, filled with purpose, genuine relationships, and the freedom to be exactly who I was, I realized she was right. Sometimes the best revenge against those who try to push you out of the frame is to create an entirely new gallery. And in this one, we were all front and center, wrinkles and all. 5 years later, I stood once again on the deck of the beach house. This time as an invited guest at the Chen's annual celebration of community gathering. The event had become a Hamptons tradition, bringing together people from all walks of life, all ages, all backgrounds. My book, Front and Center, Reclaiming Your Life After 60, had spent 6 months on the bestseller list. The royalties had funded scholarships for older women returning to school and helped establish senior advocacy centers in 3 states. But the real reward was in the thousands of letters I received from readers who'd found courage to make their own bold choices. Mimi. Sophie, now 11, ran to greet me. She was helping organize the children's activities for the event. "Look, what we made." She held up a handcrafted sign. "Every age tells a story." Emma followed behind, radiant in her success as both a single mother and respected designer. Her affordable housing renovation company now employed 15 people, including several women over 60 who brought invaluable life experience to their work. "Mom," she said, hugging me, "Patricia just called. She got the job." Patricia Blake, the former society matron, had just been hired as the executive director of a nonprofit fighting elder financial abuse. Her personal experience made her uniquely qualified to help others escape similar situations. As the afternoon celebration continued, I watched the mixing of generations, children playing with retirees, young entrepreneurs seeking advice from experienced elders, former adversaries now united in community service. Blake Harrison had moved to Florida 2 years ago, remarried to a woman half his age who was already showing signs of dissatisfaction with his controlling nature. His parents' divorce had been finalized, and Harrison III had lost much of his fortune to bad investments. The mighty Blake dynasty had crumbled, not through revenge, but through the natural consequences of their own choices. That evening, as the sun set over the ocean I'd watched for so many years, Arthur raised a toast. To Jody Hartwell, who taught us that being too old for family photos might just mean you're perfectly positioned for your starring role. The crowd applauded, and I felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the setting sun. Around me stood my chosen family, Emma and her children, newfound friends, former adversaries turned allies, and even the couple who'd bought my house but somehow kept its spirit alive. "You know what I've learned?" I addressed the gathering. "Life isn't about the hand you're dealt. It's about knowing when to fold the cards others have assigned you and deal yourself a fresh hand. Age isn't a limitation, it's your ace in the hole, and sometimes the best family photos are the ones where we choose who gets to be in the frame." As the party continued into the evening, I sat on the deck with my granddaughter, watching stars appear over the ocean. "Mimi," Sophie asked, "are you sad you don't live here anymore?" I looked at the house I'd built with my own hands, now filled with new laughter and memories. Then I looked at my granddaughter, confident, loved, and free from the toxic expectations that had almost poisoned our family. "Not at all, sweetheart. Home isn't about the building. It's about being surrounded by people who value you exactly as you are. And right now, I'm exactly where I belong." The next morning's Hamptons Herald featured a photo of the event with the headline, "Community Celebration Proves Age is Just a Number, but Courage is Timeless." In the center of that photo stood an older woman with silver hair and laugh lines, surrounded by people of all ages who'd learned the same lesson she had: that you're never too old to rebuild, never too set in your ways to change course, and certainly never too anything to demand the respect you deserve. The beach house had been just a building, but the courage to sell it had built something far more valuable: a life where I was no longer relegated to the edges of the family photo, but stood proudly wherever I chose to be. And that, I realized, was the real inheritance I was leaving my granddaughter, not property or wealth, but the knowledge that her worth wasn't determined by anyone else's lens. Front and center, exactly where we belonged. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.